Today on the podcast, if you know me, you know I'm excited for this. WWE superstar Big E is here to talk about the Michigan Panthers and Kids Day. I do want to say, my friend, it is an absolute honor to be able to talk to you today, not just about the Panthers, but obviously your WWE career. And I was blown away to hear that the good news that you got a month ago with your neck. So like things are going in the right direction. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I got some my 1 year scans, and thankfully they all look great. We unfortunately I don't have like a timetable.
Yeah, yeah,
I know
yeah.
everyone's asking, but like that's the biggest thing is I'm just so grateful. A lot of people ask, how are you feeling during this time emotionally? But the takeaway could be, woe is me, I got hurt. I'm not doing what I've been doing the last 13 years of my life. But for me, really, the takeaway is, especially after talking to the doctors and knowing that I don't have any issues with pain, no function issues. I was in the gym 2 weeks after breaking my neck. I still have the ability to do all the amazing things I've been able to do. Like I got to do Family Feud a few weeks ago, Wheel of Fortune prior to that. So, like for me, I am so grateful for one to be here because talking to some spine specialists who told me, hey, if it was me or someone who didn't have the column of a neck that you have, we're talking about possibly death. We're talking about paralysis. We're talking about stroke. So we're talking about some like very serious consequences. And so for me, thank you so much for asking. But that for me is the biggest takeaway. Is I feel I'm so grateful to still be here, to still have the use of my body functions great. I have no pain issues. So right now, I wish I had answers as far as what the next step is for people. But the biggest takeaway is I feel great mentally and physically.
Now, I just want to be very clear, Biggie. I was not asking for you to tell me when you're headlining WrestleMania. I was just more
Right.
thankful that everything is going in the right direction. And I would say, watching you go through, especially seeing you at the Panthers game, and we'll get to that in a second, like, it's so amazing to just watch how you go through the world. Like, even if you're paying attention to your Twitter account, like, this seems like it's just a fun thing that you're doing. You're making Coney dogs, you're on Family Feud, you're just enjoying the journey. And I wonder, if you've had some time to kind of reflect on your ability to enjoy parts of this journey that you wouldn't if you were performing 200 days a year.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I thought about multiple times. It's as much as we all love what we do, being in the ring is incredible, but it's demanding. It's even beyond just the TV appearances. We have Raw, SmackDown, we have NXT on a weekly basis. We have, premium live events every month. But beyond that, we're talking about, a myriad of live events every single week, a lot of press, a lot. So there's a lot that goes into it. So being on the road, it's an incredible job. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'm so glad I got that opportunity. But it's really difficult I wouldn't really be able to have an opportunity to do something like this if I was on SmackDown, especially if I was on Raw. It'd be difficult, and there are house shows on the weekends. So for me, that's kind of the nice thing. As much as I started this job, I got signed with the company in August of 2009. And even though I wasn't on the main roster on television, we were still in FCW. We're doing shows on the weekends. So my Saturdays and Sundays have been filled entertaining people, which I love. I love doing that. I love that, fans time off, your vacations or your time away, your time
Right.
to let loose
Yeah.
is my work. And I love that. But for me, it's also meant like I really haven't consistently had my weekends free in quite some time. And I love working. I love being able to jump into these different things. That's something as I get older, I realize that I really truly enjoy is just throw me a new challenge. Let me see if I have the skills to do it, and let me jump all in. And honestly, like this gig, this job as the MC for the Panthers home games has been so enjoyable for me. One, truly, Detroit has shown me so much love. I feel like this feels like a home away from home in so many ways. The people here are so warm. I feel like my love and admiration for Detroit has grown so much because of the people here. I've learned so much about what the city has to offer. So many things, in Florida, we don't have a lot of institutions and restaurants that have been around for over 100 years. We're new money in Florida. And the cool thing, I went to Hot Sam's in Detroit. That's been around for over 100 years. American Coney has been around for over 100 years. So, when we have shows here, I don't really have the same ability. It's find a gym, it's find food real quick, get to the building, and then you're on to the next town. So this is the first time I've really had time to sit in Detroit. And although we've been working, we've been out and about, but I've learned so much about Detroit, about the area, about Michigan, even going to Ann Arbor for practice. My time has really just allowed me to really grow my love for Detroit. But you're right, man. I really think about just kind of the opportunities I've had, because I've been out of the ring, and although it's different and it's not what most people know me for, it's something that I've really kind of enjoyed these new opportunities.
From an outsider's perspective, it looks like it. And I've got a million questions, so I'll get to as many as I can before I got to let you go. And I know you've said in other interviews, football was one of your first loves, but explain to me kind of the process of how you got this gig and then how you landed in Detroit, like what that whole thing turned out to be.
Yeah, so I have to give a lot of credit to Marie Keeler at Fox Sports. So thankfully, the cool thing for me was when I had the title, I got an opportunity to do Big Noon Kickoff for my alma mater, for the Iowa Hawkeyes. And it was such a blast. It was so cool for me. As someone who was just a backup defensive lineman for 1 year, I was on the field. I was a nobody essentially at Iowa, despite they treated me excellently. But I didn't have the career that I wanted to. But to be able to go back years later and to have that kind of acclaim and that kind of love really meant so much to me. So anyways, so I got hooked up with Marie and Fox Sports just in general. They have been incredible. That whole crew has been great. So I got to do that for the Penn State game in 2021. We got to go to the Big Ten title game that year. That didn't go our way. Unfortunately, we lost to the Wolverines, got spanked. And then I got to do Iowa, Michigan the following year for Big Noon Kickoff. So I think, thankfully, these guys have been so great at Fox Sports that we were looking for another way to plug me back in. And we were working on it for months and months. And then finally, Marie from Fox Sports came to me and kind of presented this opportunity. And I'm not from Michigan. I didn't play football here, obviously. So, that connection didn't make a lot of sense. But with SummerSlam being at Ford Field, the same venue where the Panthers play, that was the way to really tie this together, and it made so much sense. So that's kind of how we arrived at this opportunity, and also having the freedom, not being on the road, it just made sense. I was able to do it, and we fully jumped in. And for me, it's a new opportunity, but it's not a vastly different skill set. What we do in WWE, it's really truly all about crowd engagement. And although I've never really just picked up a mic and talk to fans and play games with them, I haven't done that in WWE, but it's still taking the skills I've learned, learning to entertain people, learning to engage people, and just doing that in a different setting.
So Big E, how do you approach that difference? For people who don't perform as a living, they might not understand the difference between standing in a ring and delivering a promo and then doing your art form and doing that stuff and then going to the back, as opposed to turning to Rick and hoping that Rick is paying attention as you're talking to him to get him to engage in the game. Like, how's that skill set different between, doing what you do in WWE and then setting up these games with crowds where you don't actually have any idea what they're going to do?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we've been working with Lambert in town, and I believe they're like a PR agency. But they have really, the reason I'm able to do this fairly well, or at least acceptably, is I have a great team around me. I have
Hang on. You're better than acceptable. That is not at all what I was saying. I just wanted to know the difference between kind of like going out and being in control of the situation versus, I don't know, let's see what happens when we turn to Jimmy and give him a microphone.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. So yeah, I have a great team with me that really helps. We kind of build out these ideas together, and that's the one thing I've really loved is that the team that I'm working with at Lambert and with Fox Sports is they've really supported a lot of my ideas. I don't want to, as much as it can be fun to just be the performer who reads other people's words. I really, over the last several years, especially with the New Day, I like being a part of the creative process. So for me, I've learned to not be so shy about putting my hand up and say, hey, I think this is a good idea, and I think this is the way to execute it. So that's kind of what I thought about. And I also just think I might be able to kind of go back and really just think about what would I want as a young fan at a football game. The on-field product is what it is. I have nothing to do with that. But between commercial breaks, before and after, at halftime, what are the fun things that I would want as a fan? So I always try to keep that stuff in mind. So for me, that really it's not a massive shift. It's more as a wrestler, as a performer in the ring. I think of broadcasting to many in a different way, but it's a little bit more personal. It's a little bit different. But it's really, honestly, the fans have just made it easy. Everyone just allows me to just kind of show up as myself and have fun. And it just feels like it's working.
I got a couple more questions, then I'll let you go. Obviously, tomorrow is Kids Day. We are taking on the Maulers from Pittsburgh. I'm wondering, given the fact that you are obviously someone who played football and a fan of football. And I know as a host MC, it's probably not your job to break down the action, but I'd love if I could, for a half second, if you could tell me, like, what do the Panthers need to do and what are the Maulers good at? Because for Michiganders and Detroiters, this whole system is new, right? The USFL is new at Ford Field. I mean, in the 80s, but a lot of people that you're talking to had no idea that the Panthers were around in the 80s. And so this is a new thing. What can we expect tomorrow and what do they need to do to win?
Yeah, well, from a fan side, obviously you're gonna have a blast. We have, we'll have the kids have the opportunity to have their faces painted. We'll have balloon animals. Coach Kara leading them in exercises. But from an on-field standpoint, I will say I am not the best. I'm not an expert here, and I'm also doing so many things that it's hard to actually sit down and watch the game, which I wish I had more of an opportunity to do. But I wish oftentimes it feels like that explosive play isn't there yet, and at least the last two home games. So that's what I'm looking forward to, is some more explosive plays. And I think unfortunately we've seen the Panthers give up a few explosive plays. So I think that'll be the big thing, is just being able to consistently move the ball. Again, this is just general football speak, but
sure,
that's something I'd like to see. But yeah, man, I'm really excited. I worry about being a little bit of a bad omen, because we talk about this team being 2-0, and then you throw me in the mix. We come home to Ford Field, and unfortunately, it hasn't gone our way. But I think that's going to change at Kids Day on Saturday. So we'll make sure that turns around.
And I will say that I was at the first home game with my son, and we had an absolute blast. Tickets start at $10, so kind of like, let's get that out of the way. You can get into Ford Field for $10. It is an absolute blast, and I don't know that you and I could even begin to oversell the cool stuff for kids to do off of the field. There is so much for kids to do, it's bananas. So I can't even imagine what that up a couple notches for Kids Day is even going to look like.
Exactly, man. And that's the big thing. And I have to give a lot of credit. It's not just me by any means. They've done a great job of making sure the kids are engaged, having fun. Even me, like when I'm not, doing my obligations, I do my best. And that's the great thing. I love, like, being a kid's entertainer, is just naturally, I'm doing my best to sign autographs, to take pictures as well. So if you're a wrestling fan, that's another incentive to show up. So yeah, man, Kids Day is going to be a blast. And like you said, even prior to Kids Day, we've done a great job of engaging families and kids. So we're going to take that even a step further on Saturday.
Now, you spent some time in and around the city and making Coney dogs, kind of going to iconic spots. But inside of Ford Field, is there a go-to stadium food that Big E has to eat if he's going to see a football game, baseball game, basketball game? Like, is there a thing that you need to consume?
That's a great question. The nice thing now is, when I was younger, it's all like hot dogs and pizza only. But the nice thing now is I went to a Cowboys game, and they got they got sushi now. They got like gourmet meals. So I feel like it's, in many ways, when I think of that question, I don't think of traditional ballpark food. I think, oh yeah, I'll get some fancy gourmet fusion thing when I go to a stadium. So I'm bougie that way.
I love it. Last question, then I will let you go. But I am excited to ask you this question because I've been watching wrestling for a long time, and I was blown away. Tell me your perspective. And I know you were talking to the iHeart crew prior to Backlash, but watching the crowd at Backlash, like, I mean, because on paper, the reaction shouldn't really have been as bananas as it was for the entire length, not just when Bad Bunny's on, but the entire length. As somebody who's been in this industry for a long time, did that surprise you as much as it surprised me? And how exciting is it to watch that?
It's incredible, man. So I've never been to Puerto Rico. Every time there's a Puerto Rico show, I'm always on the other tour, or this time I've been out. So I missed it. But I've always heard, Primo and Epico, they've told us, like, for years, hearing stories in the locker room about how hot the crowds are in Puerto Rico for wrestling. The Colon family, they've done their thing in Puerto Rico for a long time. So they understand pro wrestling. They get it. They have a long storied history of pro wrestling there. But still, all that being said, man, I get, like, even when you just started talking about it, as soon as you said Backlash, I started getting goosebumps, because as a performer, those are the days, those are the events, those are the shows that you think about 10, 20 years after your career is over. Those are the things that you dream of, those moments. And seeing people, like seeing Zelina, seeing how moved she was, seeing how much that meant to her, was incredible. So that was such a special show. And honestly, I'm just really excited about the direction of our product, of where the company is, because even if you look at there was a live event in Paris, and I don't know if you saw any of those clips.
I did not know.
But even like Baron Corbin, I had to text him because he was so moved by that reaction. That crowd was so incredible from start to finish. And for me, as someone, when I'm done wrestling, long after I'm done wrestling, I want to see the business continue to grow. And I don't want to think, oh, our day was, that was the last great era. No, I want to see people best us. I want to see ticket sales go even higher. I want to see bigger venues. I want to see talent do bigger and bigger things, because that's how our industry will continue to sustain itself and continue to grow. So for me, I love seeing that so much, because it feels like the younger talent coming in, the Rhea Ripleys of the world, the Dominic Mysterios, the Solo Sikoas, they're taking, the ball, they're taking this opportunity and they're continuing to grow. They're taking it another step. But that was a really special show, man. And I honestly, I was watching that Bad Bunny entrance on loop, because
right.
It's incredible. To me, you don't even have to know wrestling. You don't have to like wrestling. You don't have to know Bad Bunny, but you put that thing on, you see that energy. You see the way he's received. You see those Puerto Rican fans. Honestly, like, people were asking, like, is this a top 5 all-time crowd? Higher than that? It was so special, man. Those moments as a performer are what you dream of. That's what it's all about. You always want to have a great match. You want to cut a great promo. You want to win titles. You want to make money. You want to do all these things. But at the essence, as a performer, what touches you, I think, most deeply is when you're received like that by a crowd that hot, when you know they're invested, when you know they're entertained, when you know they're loud, they're electric. They were really, in many ways, the stars of that night, was that crowd. So salute to them. It's just really an exciting time in our industry. And it's great that so many talent have opportunities to work on national television, international television, and make a living. So I'm really excited about the direction of our industry. And that was a really special show, and one I think about often.
All right, my friend. Tomorrow it is Kids Day. Panthers, Maulers, doors at 11:30. Tickets $10. You are in control of the rest of that show. Have an amazing weekend, and I would love to catch up towards the end of the season.
Yes, let's do that. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.